I really need to reevaluate how I store my notes in my second brain. Maybe I should just delete them altogether. At least that's what I'm thinking right now. Yeah, I'm Shaston, and I am a lifelong open source user, and I currently work as a software developer. I rely heavily on my notes. Now, I ran across this article today. I deleted my second brain. I identified with one aspect, like how they had basically understood that they weren't interacting with their notes. And I know I got all kinds of detractors and critics who might say, you didn't use my preferred method or whatever. I guess you can keep saying that if you need to feel better about yourself. But the simple fact of the matter is there isn't any perfect method. Now, I haven't used Obsidian in over 2 years. In fact, I use Neovim. So, like, for example, you can see I kind of have this vault, I guess, if you will. I have still have the Obsidian file. I have mega, the mega part of it, and I used to have a Git. I used to use Git to like be able to pull it up on my phone. I've used Mega. I've used a few different methods to basically keep track of my notes. And in the past, I've used VimWiki, which probably I actually might go back. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest. I've used Neorg. I've used Obsidian in Vim. I've also used Emacs's org mode. They're all great in their particular way, right? And so basically my preferred method is the access method. Atlas, calendar cards, extras, sources, spaces. It's developed by Nick Milo, and it's basically something that's related to the actual Obsidian app. I still use Neovim. Like if I come in here to cards, you'll see like I have Norg files. I still have a lot of my notes. I still have Norg files. I don't have Norg files set up right now on this particular Neovim thing, but maybe like if I just showed maybe like the cheat sheet. Let's take a look. Hold up here. Here we are. Here's like part of my cheat sheet, kind of comparing Python to Zig. And so basically, pretty simple. Atlas basically is like all of the maps of content templates, calendar. It's like time sensitive stuff like to-dos, journals, that sort of thing. Calendar, it's all the time sensitive like to-dos, like journals and that sort of thing. And then cards, that's where my notes go. Extras, that's all the attachments, graphics, templates, that sort of thing. Sources, reference materials, articles, music, podcast, all of that. And spaces, this is like the most important areas of my life and work and that sort of thing. Like if I'm planning something or if I have an idea or something like that, it usually goes in there. One of the main difficulties maintaining my note-taking system is that I have this ADHD brain. It forgets everything, right? I'll write a video script. I'll put it in the cards section and I'll totally forget about it. I'll forget that I even wrote it. I'll forget that I'm supposed to record this video. I've already wrote the script and it's all ready. All I have to do is press record. So basically after that, I had like a temporary directory called X, but that got so cluttered, basically an X would be like everything I was working on, my new notes, while I was making those notes, they would just go into the second brain. It just became a mess. So to kind of avoid that, I think I need, many different vaults, at least 3 that I'm aware of, maybe 4. I need one for a general note taking in life, one for YouTube scripts, and another one for my writing. I might need one for my music as well, because a lot of times I like to play music and, I'm studying something or writing something or something like that. So my general note taking vault, basically I like to convert PDF manuals into markdown files, store man pages, document relevant documentation, and take notes on important technologies. For example, if I come over here I'll give you a really good example of this. If I come over here to cards in the Zig folder, I started documenting this whole thing, this whole Zen thing. And so I basically am going to have all the documentation and that sort of thing. So I think it's really cool. I think it's going to help me stay on top of things. There's a lot more, of that kind of stuff that I have that I've been working on in the last couple of weeks. So another thing is I know I need to improve on my references, like the sources part, organize my to-do a little bit better and start writing more in my journal. I just haven't been doing any of those things because none of it has really been that organized, right? And then the scripts vault, maybe hash out some video ideas, maybe final scripts, that sort of thing. I have the writing vault. This is where all my writing goes, my blog posts, my book ideas. I'm not going to go into those right now because there's really not much in there and there's really not much to see, but that's what I'm thinking. I do plan on doing a lot more writing, even going forward, writing more blog posts and that sort of thing, with some of the hacks that I do, with some of my programming. And the problem with my second brain, and probably the problem with a lot of second brains, is I think a lot of times there's not really any interaction with those notes. They just become static and burdensome. You're just recording stuff to be recording. You don't know why you're recording that stuff. And I just, contrary to popular belief, I don't think you should have to document everything. I just don't. I think you only have to document what you want to retrieve. Like, for example, did you read a crappy book recently? I mean, if you did, why are you documenting that? I mean, there's a whole bunch of junk out there that we probably shouldn't document. But there are other things that I disagree with. Maybe there's some value in. See, we have to be very discriminate and have a real reason why we're documenting. Is there a reason why we're documenting it? Or are we just, just playing around? And I'm just giving you some visuals so that you can kind of follow me. That kind of brings me to the solution part, to the second brain. How does an effective note-taking system actually work? And my experiences is usually there's some personal interaction causing learning. I can tell you from personal experience, it's impossible to learn a foreign language without actually speaking it. You can't study the hell out of it out of a book and expect to somehow learn it. It just doesn't work because you have to interact with it. And I think it's kind of the same thing with notes, right? So there's a possible solution. Maybe I can make personal interaction easier. Maybe I can make retrieval easier. One of the mistakes that I often see is that people just don't read through their notes regularly. And I do think this is a new habit that you need to adopt. And I think you need to edit and update your notes regularly. Like, do you understand classes in Python differently than you did 2 years ago? Okay, so have you updated that? I think my way forward is I'm going to use something like VimWiki from here on out and restructure my notes, at least for right now. And I'll probably use something like FCF to call them up instantly. I'll probably employ some sort of table of contents system. The ability to store tags inside of headers. This is going to be really important. And so that they just automatically post the table of contents in the beginning of a markdown file. And then I would either click or have a shortcut to go straight to that section. One of the things that I've been considering is rewriting a text editor, but using Zig and Elixir. And if I did this, maybe one of my first plugins or my first plugins would be Elixir. And while I'm writing it, I could probably write it in Elixir with a Lua skeleton and just have basically a Neovim plugin. It's good for preparing for that eventual text editor that will, be produced. So maybe I could even, develop a mobile version. One of the things I would like to achieve is to have like a coding and writing system that is language agnostic, both programming languages and also written languages. Just have it be language agnostic. And also basically the ability to write code and write documentation at the same time. And that would be something like similar to, maybe like org mode, for example. I would have better documentation on the actual project, and there would be a lower barrier to entry. This is my biggest criticism of org mode. I think I would use org mode if there wasn't such a high barrier to entry. Something like one of the other things that I see is like maybe like the image.envim without Lua rocks to show images. That would probably be something I would do. So what are your problems with note taking? Do you employ some sort of concept like a second brain or a Zettelkasten system? And if you want to see my previous video about the second brain to get kind of some ideas, go ahead and click here, I think. And there's still a ton of relevant material in that video as well. I also want to thank Isaac, Scrub Ghost, and Russell for their generosity. Without them, this show just would not be possible. Peace, guys.